Sometimes I really wonder about us as black people. I really do. I know many of you who listen to my commentary, I believe you probably think that I am pessimist. I don't really like the culture. I don't really like Africans. The reason why I commentate on these issues is because I want to see us do better. And I believe after all my years of life, I understand what the problems are. And I think many of you also understand the problems that we face. And that our problems are not just born from external entities. Our problems, most of them, come from within us. And I think this is the disconnect that a lot of people are having. A lot of black people do not have this level of accountability, both men and women. The Transatlantic Slave Trade is a pivotal point of contention. So basically, there is this Commonwealth Summit where the Commonwealth of Nations will meet up in Somoa, where I guess to discuss things in relation to how these countries can better. To be honest, I don't even know what the point of the Commonwealth is. You know, why would former subjects still want to be in cahoots with their former imperial masters? You know, this is just one of those things where it just showcases that many African peoples and other colonized people just might not be thinking in the right way. You know, if someone owned my country, I can't, and the moment I become liberated, I can't see myself trying to be in some G-unit team with those countries. It doesn't make sense to me, but hey, who am I? I'm just one guy, right? But basically, they're going to this summit. And it seems like every time this summit comes about, there's always someone talking about Britain's role in the slave trade and whether or not the UK will apologise for the slavery that they took part in. And this is my take. And again, you might not like my take, and I appreciate that. But all I ask for you is to have an open mind and an open ear and to hear something you might not necessarily like. What is it with these symbolic gestures that black people seem to crave? Because for decades now, I recall people needing to hear the UK apologise for the slave trade. What is an apology going to do? How is an apology going to change the damages that have been caused in the past? Okay, we can talk about reparations. I know that's a hot button topic when it comes to FBA, Black Americans. But even in our case, okay, that's not the American topic is a distinct and different topic. But speaking for us African people, right, colonized people, do you really think, I don't know, £1 billion in reparations is going to actually affect the life of Africans, Nigerians, Ghanaians in any specific way? Let's be honest, with the current regimes in place, do you really think you're going to feel the 1 billion reparations that it will give you? So really, this is all about symbolic gestures. And this is my problem with a lot of African communities, is that a lot of our mindsets are stuck in the past. I remember someone asked if technology will aid and improve the lives of Africans. I disagreed with that. I think that in order to appreciate technology and the advances in society that it can deliver, you need to come from a culture that emphasizes the future, a culture that is progressive, a culture that is open-minded, that can think critically. We are not raised to think critically because the moment we talk back to our parents, we might get a backhand to the face. We are threatened with violence when we try to think outside of the box, right? So we are not a forward-thinking type of people, in my opinion. And this is where all this ancestral worship, all going back to the ancient civilizations, that mentality is not something that is going to propel us forward. And these symbolic gestures is just one of those traits. It's one of those instances where it just showcases that people they seem like they aren't really living in the present. You know, they're just floating about, procrastinating, waiting for something. I don't know what it is, but many black people just seem very numb. So back to this apology. So people have been asking from the British royal family, the Prime Minister, to apologise, and they assume that, okay, with a Labour government coming in, that they would apologise. I remember Tony Blair was once quizzed by the Ghanaian president or Prime Minister as to why didn't he apologise. And Tony Blair actually said, actually, I did apologise and I'm very sorry about it. And like that is what's comical about this, is because some random white guy can just apologise on behalf of the UK. What does that change? What does that affect? Does it make you feel all warm and fuzzy inside that some white guy who wasn't even involved with the slave trade apologises for the slave trade? How does it make sense? Symbolic gestures won't fix the problems that we have today. And on another note, okay, because we are talking about a slave trade, that implies that they were trading partners, right? And this is a reality that many of you black people don't even want to touch. And that is, the fact is, Africans were the trading partners with the Europeans in this trade. Yes, it was. Someone in my chat once said, oh, it's a miseducation. Africans didn't sell their own brothers and sisters, quote unquote. The fact that people think that Africans saw each other as brothers and sisters is so far from the truth. It's shocking that today in 2024, what people actually believe in their heads, right? And we can see why many people have this defeatist, victimized mentality, because they choose to believe what they want to believe, even though there are various sources that showcase that African tribes were raiding and counter-raiding each other to supply the demand for slaves to attain arms so they can enhance their so-called empires in their region. But some people believe that it was a few dusty white men on boats that sailed for months down to the coast, and they had the strength and they had the numbers to go into the interior and to raid for slaves. So I'm saying, what about those nations that were around the slave coast that contributed to the slave trade, that are now called Nigeria, Ghana, Benin, Togo? Just because, sure, these countries didn't exist in those times, the royal families in those countries are still there, you know. These royal families are balling as well. These royal families are sending their kids to the UK, to America, to study in the best universities. These are the Africans that are going to end up being your bosses, and they're going to be looking down on you with total arrogance, right? And they have this attitude because no one is pulling them up on the part they played in the slave trade. No accountability. So yeah, you want an apology from UK and all the other partners in the trade, but what about the African people? All these wars that fuel the slave trade, all these tribal wars, civil wars. A civil war in the Yoruba area is why Brazil, Cuba, Haiti have so many Yorubas in those countries. Yoruba on Yoruba violence. Yoruba on Yoruba slave trading. So what about an apology from the Oni of Ife, the king of Ife, the spiritual king of the Yoruba people? Crickets. You just want that symbolic gesture from a white person. Oh, apologize. You know, but to the people that believe some random white people on some creaky ship with some old muskets rolled up and stole black people for centuries, if you believe that, you're just a delusional fool. And this is why, to be frank with you, a lot of people need to be, including other black people, need to be very wary of some of the black people that exist today. They need to be very wary because many of these black people, their mindsets are toxic and dangerous. self-loathing, lazy. There are black people walking around that believe that white people are their enemies, but at this very same time, they decide to live around white people, work around white people, supply the businesses of white people, buy from white people, but their conscience is not affected. You know, these are people that are in just delusional people living in their own personal dilemmas. These are people you can't take seriously. But anyway, in conclusion, I mean, I'm going to link the article in the description below if you want to see further, but stop living in the past, guys. Like, seriously, stop living in the past. No one needs to apologize for the slave trade because everyone was taking part in the slave trade. To be fair to UK, and I know this gets a lot of criticism, of obviously the slave trade calmed down because of the Industrial Revolution. So with the machines, there was no need for people to do manual labor like that. So whether you like it or not, Britain did have proponents against the slave trade who were patrolling African seas to stop African people from trading more, further trading people, and then taking them to Freetown, Sierra Leone. Like, this is the Royal Navy doing this. And sure, of course, it's not because they're doing it out of the kindness of their heart, but who expects random people to be risking lives and resources on helping other foreign people? So again, an apology won't change the past. Money won't change it at all because most African countries have very corrupt leadership. Focus on the future, okay? Focus on not repeating the mistakes of the past from our so-called ancestors, right? Focus on treating your kids with love and respect, therefore allowing them to prosper and have a mentality that is healthy, that questions the world, that harbors a person who is loved and who has healthy self-esteem, right? Speaking of self-esteem, the next video is going to be about self-hate. Okay, so look out for that. But let me know your thoughts about this situation in the comments below, and I'll catch you in the next one.